What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. We got some big news to go over here for you guys in this video. President Biden has signed and ended the national pandemic emergency, and there's going to be benefits ending for millions of Americans and even more ending here soon with the budget cut negotiations and the debt ceiling cut negotiations. There's going to be a lot of services and just general budget cuts. We'll go over that here in this video. And Social Security is in the worst public service crisis in memory. What's going on here? We'll go over that here in this video as well. Yeah, so President Biden signed and ended the national pandemic emergency. This is after Congress did it here recently. So President Biden signed the congressional act here. Yeah, you can see here the U.S. national emergency to respond to the pandemic ended as President Biden signed a bipartisan congressional resolution to bring it to a close after 3 years, even though the virus is clearly still around. Weeks before it was set to expire, alongside a separate public health emergency. The national emergency allowed the government to take sweeping steps to respond to the virus and support the country's economic, health, and welfare systems. Some of the emergency measures have already been successfully wound down, while others are still being phased out. I'll get to that, what type of services are going to be ending here. The public health emergency, it underpins tough immigration restrictions at the U.S.-Mexico border. That will be expiring on May 11th. The White House issued a one-line statement Monday saying Biden had signed the measure behind closed doors after having publicly opposed the resolution, though not to the point of issuing a veto. This is because it was a bipartisan resolution. But more than 197 Democrats in the House voted against it when the Republican-controlled chamber passed it in February last month, as the member passed the Senate by a 68-23 vote. Biden let lawmakers know that he would and did sign it. Among the changes, the Department of House and Urban Development's C-19 mortgage forbearance program is set to end at the end of May. The Department of VA Veterans Affairs is now returning to a requirement for in-home visits to determine eligibility for a caregiver assistance. Legislators last year did extend for another 2 years telehealth flexibilities that were introduced for C-19 hit leading healthcare systems around the country to regularly deliver care by smartphone or computer. More than 1.13 million people in the U.S. have died from the virus over the last 3 years, according to the CDC, including 1,773 people in the week ending April 5th. It's also estimated that between 15 to 18 million people on Medicaid will be losing their Medicaid coverage. This is because over the last 3 years, Medicaid did not check for eligibility, and now we will be checking for eligibility, and will be kicking off about 15 to 18 million people because they will not be eligible. And they are starting those eligibility checks right about now in all states. So buckle up and be prepared. This comes as of December, over 92 million people in the U.S. were on Medicaid and CHIP in the U.S. That's almost a third of the entire United States that has about 330 million people. So we have almost 100 million people in the United States on Medicaid. So it's like 30% of our population. It's a lot of people, a lot of people. And 15 to 18 million people are going to be losing their Medicaid eligibility status here. Yeah. Also, as you can see here, the GOP, the Republicans, Grand Old Party, eyes new work requirements for millions on Medicaid and food stamps, the SNAP program. The demands from, this is from the Washington Post, the demands from House Speaker Kevin McCarthy comes as the White House rejects talks on policies that could cut benefits to low-income Americans. But some Republicans are demanding these in exchange for raising the debt ceiling or budget cuts. We will see when it actually comes down to brass tacks, but we are hearing some talks like this in early negotiation stages, which this is going to be right around the corner. And we're already starting to see headlines like this from all over the place. So you can see it here in black and white. House Republicans are eyeing new work requirements for millions of low-income Americans who receive health insurance money to buy food or other financial aid from the federal government, reprising the party's historic crusade against welfare, and some lawmakers seek new ways to slash spending. In the recent weeks, the GOP has focused its attention on two anti-poverty programs, Medicaid, which enrolls the poorest families in health insurance, and food stamps, known as the SNAP program, which provide grocery benefits to those in need. Top lawmakers, including House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, have publicly endorsed rules that could force some enrollees to find a job and work longer hours or risk losing the government's help entirely. And Social Security, among their many crises, they're also having what is called, quote, the worst public service crisis in memory. Labor unions are saying here, Social Security beneficiaries now confront long waits for service on the phone and in person at agency field offices. Behind the scenes, agency workers face low staffing levels and overwhelming workloads. A union representing more than 40,000 employees said. Increasing funding for the program, as well as stronger policies to help retain workers, may help, the union said. This comes as long wait time for beneficiaries seeking help from the Social Security Administration have become more common since the onset of the pandemic, even prompting a congressional hearing in 2022 to address the issue. However, with more cuts on the horizon, this could get even worse. And Social Security prompting a shortfall, potentially running out of money in as early as 9 or 10 years. You can see how these problems could get even worse. And Social Security, obviously not the only government area with problems like this. If you try to call the IRS, it's as bad or worse. Sometimes you literally can't even get a hold of them. But when you owe them money, it's another story, right? Yeah. So, yeah, what are your experiences with IRS wait times, or your dad who's an accountant?
You can't talk to them. It doesn't happen.
Yeah. So apparently Social Security is the same way.
Oh.
And Social Security offices are the same way as well.
Like you go there and you wait in line and you can't ever.
Like in person for seniors.
God, that's
so imagine
terrible.
like, you know, you're in your 70s or 80s and you go there in person.
Or Gogi when she could go places.
Yeah, and you're there in person and you got to wait for like an hour or 2 or 3.
And then you never get to speak to anybody.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
And now Social Security is set to run out of money in 9 or 10 years. Even worse. And now budget cuts. They're talking about cutting government funding for all these different
programs
yeah, exacerbating this even worse.
That's got to be scary.
Yeah, so and then the problem is, you look at this, it's like, I get a lot of people's comments. They say, well, we need to cut foreign funding first. Like, let's not.
I understand what they're thinking.
But the problem is, it's like, well, do we let Russia win? Do we let China win? Do we let China invade Taiwan?
There's a lot of other things that the government has to take care of.
So, and then you got to kind of really think, is the deficit more important than Americans? Is the deficit more important than letting Putin or China invade other countries and put, in the end, our security at risk?
It's a very, very difficult situation.
What are your thoughts?
I don't know the solution, and I'm glad that I'm not in the government. I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions.
And it's tough, because it's like, where do you cut? And it's sad that it's like, it's their first talks of cuts are like, oh, let's cut from the low and middle income people.
Yeah, that's sad.
You know? So
I don't know.
And the other sad part about it is, every election, 95% of these people get reelected.
Yeah, I know. There's no change ever that happens.
And people are always like, we want change, we want change. And I'm not even choosing sides. It's not Republicans, it's not Democrats. They all get reelected.
Yeah.
They all get You look at Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, and people complain about both of them all the time, no matter which one it is. They get reelected like stalwarts every year. They're like, what do you call them? The crypt keepers?
Yeah.
They get reelected for 100 years, man. They're gonna be there till they're like, oh, it's our 100th anniversary.
Yeah, until they retire, basically.
They're still getting elected.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. What's the solution?
I have no idea what the solution is, and I'm glad that I don't have to make it.
So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. We'll keep you guys up to date here. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe down below. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thanks for liking and sharing these videos. Here's some videos you should watch next. You can click here to see what's coming for all 50 states because of what the Fed is doing. And here's a very important video about what is happening in Russia right now. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you in the next video.